At some point in life, many people notice a subtle shift in how they respond emotionally to the world around them. Situations that once triggered strong feelings begin to feel more distant. Conversations that once carried emotional intensity start feeling quieter, more controlled, and less reactive. To others, this change can appear confusing. Friends or family members may interpret the difference as coldness, indifference, or withdrawal. But for the person experiencing it, the change rarely feels sudden or intentional. Instead, it is usually the result of a long psychological process shaped by experiences, relationships, and repeated emotional patterns. When people are younger, emotional openness often feels natural. Trust is extended easily. Vulnerability feels like a path toward connection, and emotional responses tend to appear quickly and sincerely. At this stage of life, relationships often operate on optimism. People believe that expressing feelings honestly will strengthen bonds and resolve misunderstandings. For a time, this belief can create powerful and meaningful connections. But as life unfolds, individuals inevitably encounter experiences that challenge this openness. They may experience situations where vulnerability is misunderstood or dismissed. They may discover that sharing personal feelings sometimes leads to criticism rather than understanding. In some cases, trust is broken in ways that feel deeply personal. Each of these experiences leaves behind subtle psychological traces. The mind begins learning that emotional openness carries certain risks. This awareness does not usually eliminate the desire for connection, but it does change how freely emotions are expressed. Over time, individuals start becoming more selective about where they invest their emotional energy. Another factor that contributes to emotional distance involves the complexity of human relationships. As people accumulate experience with different personalities and social environments, they begin noticing patterns in how emotional dynamics unfold. They observe how expectations shift within relationships, how misunderstandings arise even between well-intentioned individuals, and how emotional reactions can escalate quickly when perspectives clash. Recognizing these patterns can make emotional involvement feel more complicated than it once did. The individual may begin protecting themselves by reducing the intensity of their emotional responses. Instead of reacting strongly to every situation, they maintain a calmer and more controlled emotional presence. To outsiders, this calmness can appear as emotional distance, but internally it often represents a strategy for maintaining stability. Emotional energy also plays a significant role in this transformation. Strong emotional reactions require mental attention and psychological effort. When someone experiences repeated cycles of emotional conflict, disappointment, or misunderstanding, they may begin conserving that energy. Rather than investing deeply in every relationship or conversation, they focus their emotional resources on situations that feel truly meaningful. This shift often leads to a more selective form of connection. The individual may still care deeply about a few trusted people, while remaining emotionally reserved with everyone else. Another important influence comes from increased self-awareness. As individuals reflect on their past experiences, they often begin recognizing how certain environments affected their emotional well-being. Some relationships may have created pressure to constantly prove loyalty or understanding. Others may have involved subtle competition or imbalance in emotional support. Identifying these patterns can motivate individuals to protect their emotional boundaries more carefully. Emotional distance becomes a way of maintaining personal balance rather than a rejection of connection itself. Over time, This process reshapes how individuals express care and attachment. They may still feel emotions deeply, but they express them more quietly and selectively. Their emotional world becomes less visible to others, even though it remains active internally. As individuals continue moving through life with this more guarded emotional perspective, they often begin discovering that emotional distance can serve multiple psychological functions. One of the most significant is clarity. When emotions are constantly expressed and shared in social environments, they can sometimes become influenced by the reactions of others. People may unconsciously adjust their feelings to match the expectations of those around them. By stepping back emotionally, individuals create space to understand their own reactions more clearly before sharing them with others. This distance allows them to evaluate situations calmly rather than responding impulsively. Another transformation appears in how individuals approach communication. Earlier in life, emotional expression may have felt like the primary tool for resolving misunderstandings or strengthening relationships. But with experience, people begin recognizing that not every situation benefits from immediate emotional response. Sometimes strong reactions can intensify conflict rather than resolve it. Emotional distance allows individuals to respond more deliberately. They may choose their words carefully, speak less frequently, and avoid conversations that revolve around emotional escalation. This communication style can make them appear emotionally unavailable to those who expect constant emotional engagement. Yet from the individual's perspective, it reflects a preference for stability rather than detachment. Another reason emotional distance develops involves the search for authenticity. When people spend years navigating complex social expectations, they sometimes begin questioning whether their emotional responses truly belong to them or whether they were shaped by pressure from others. Taking emotional distance can help individuals rediscover their authentic emotional boundaries. They learn which feelings they genuinely want to express and which expectations they no longer wish to fulfill. This process often leads to a quieter but more stable emotional identity. The individual becomes less reactive to external emotional pressure because they understand their own boundaries more clearly. Relationships also evolve under this new emotional framework. Instead of forming connections quickly through shared vulnerability, individuals may take longer to trust new relationships. They observe behavior across time before revealing deeper emotions. While this approach may reduce the number of close relationships, it often increases their depth and stability. Trust grows slowly but becomes more resilient because it is built on consistent experience rather than immediate emotional openness. Another interesting aspect of emotional distance involves perception. When individuals step back from constant emotional involvement, they often become more attentive observers of human behavior. Without the pressure to react immediately, they can analyze conversations and emotional dynamics more clearly. They notice how certain situations trigger predictable emotional responses within groups. They observe how insecurity, ambition, or fear can influence how people express themselves emotionally. This observational awareness can deepen empathy because the individual begins seeing the motivations behind behavior rather than reacting only to its surface expression. Ultimately, becoming emotionally unavailable is rarely about losing the ability to feel. In many cases, it represents an adaptation to complex social experiences. The individual learns to balance emotional openness with emotional protection. They choose when and where to express vulnerability rather than allowing every environment to access their inner world freely. To those who do not understand this transformation, emotional distance may appear like withdrawal. but from the inside, it often feels like clarity. The individual has learned that emotions are powerful and meaningful, and precisely because of that, they choose carefully when those emotions are shared.